All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to another Hibob webinar. I'm Ali from the Hibob marketing team, and I'm so excited to welcome you guys today, where our webinar will be all about attracting and engaging top talent in this new world that we're living in. Feedback that we get from the Hibob community all the time centers around how just the way that companies hire have changed. Even companies that prior to 2020 were super fast growing and exponentially hiring people have had to change their approach, or at least modify the way they attract top talent. And then so many people from our community have also told us that the things that they look for in a successful employee have also changed. We've gotten to a point now where we have come to accept that this situation is no longer temporary, and that some element of hybrid working or remote working will probably be ever present within our work lives for some time to come. And so that opens up a whole new can of worms of what to expect when you're hiring, what to look for, and how to navigate the challenges around attracting and engaging top talent. But luckily here at Hibob, we have assembled an amazing panel to sort of help you navigate these challenges. I'll introduce them in just a second. As we're waiting for people to come on the line, I'd love to remind you that all of our panels like this are interactive. So please feel free to submit questions in the question box or in the chat, and I will be sure to direct them towards our panelists in today's conversation. It's especially important that we keep today interactive because every company's journey towards hiring and every company's way of maintaining talent in the remote world is so different. And we'd love to hear from you questions and opinions on how you're navigating these challenges as well. But without any further ado, I'd love to introduce my panelists here today, and they'll tell you a little bit about themselves and who they are and where they work and sort of how they've come to be in the profession, and then we'll get started with taking questions from the audience. But to kick things off, I have Laura here. Laura is the head of people at Extrinsica Global.
Hello.
I have hello, thanks for joining us, Laura. I have Sarah, who's the head of people at Boxxe.
Hi there.
And then I have Pia, who's a people partner at Signaturit.
Signaturit, yes. Hi.
So welcome, you guys. So happy to have you guys join us. So happy in particular because I think everybody on this call has quite a unique perspective on how they're navigating talent acquisition and talent retention these days. But before we dive into that, I'd love to hear just a little bit about you and your role and where you come from and the company and your team and all of that. So Laura, why don't you kick us off?
Oh, okay. So basically, I've come from a recruitment background actually. So I've always been around talent attraction. I've always got very, very involved with the companies that I've worked with, and then more recently, well, this year, obviously with COVID-19 and everything, I started doing more sort of social, personal branding and things like that, and helping organisations to get videos and podcasts and different ways they can attract talent. And I actually came across Extrinsica Global, who did a couple of different talks for me and things, and they brought me in as head of people. So I've been with them for a few months now, and we're basically a Microsoft partner. My background is all Microsoft and recruiting for Microsoft. So yeah, I'm very much sort of increasing the engagement there, cross collaboration as a remote company. And yeah, we've been hiring a lot. We're basically going from 35 people to 150 over the next 2 to 3 years. So yeah, that's what I've basically been getting stuck into with them. So
big job ahead, it sounds like, but we're super excited to have you take some time out of your busy schedule and join us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pia, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, I work at Signaturit. I don't know if you know what we do, but basically what we provide is trusted services for legal compliance with European law for everything that has to do with contractual digitization of everything that you might want to digitize. And personally, what I've been doing is for the past 2 years, I've been taking care of our people. So I started first as a talent acquisition specialist in the company. But due to the fact that we started establishing really strong partnerships with our stakeholders, we changed the structure of the whole team, and I became a business partner for the whole revenue team. And that's what I'm doing right now. And also I'm taking care of communications, events, and performance management in the company. So yeah, that's me.
Amazing. Sounds like you have a very full plate on your hands. So yeah, but thank you so much for taking the time to join us. And last but not least, Sarah.
Hi, so excited to join you guys today. So I'm head of people at Boxxe. I've actually worked for the company for a long time now, about 9 years, and have originally started off in sales operations, moved into HR about 5 years ago, and was invited to be the head of people and joined our senior leadership team about 18 months ago, which was actually at the same point that the company was acquired by a new CEO and owner. And over the last year, we've just gone through a massive program of change. Everything about our business has changed, including the company name. So we've only been Boxxe since September. And a big part of what I've been doing has been transitioning us from a more traditional HR team into a more people-focused team, and really kind of thinking about engagement and culture, and kind of all to do with that, talent being a massive part of it. Like Laura, going through a big period of growth. We've taken on 47 staff this year, and 34 of those have been lockdown hires. So massive learning curve for us this year.
Amazing.
Yeah, I can't wait to dive deeper into that journey a little bit for our audience. So, for those just joining us, we've just welcomed our panelists, Laura, Pia, and Sarah, who we're going to start taking questions from the audience on talent acquisition, talent retention, and just anything related to people problems, in 2020 and beyond, looking ahead to 2021. So for those just joining the webinar, as you know, today is a Hibob webinar co-sponsored with Teamtailor. Hibob and Teamtailor together really integrate to help provide a first-class talent acquisition, retention, and engagement experience. And we're so excited to be able to bring you this expert panel. So, before we dive into the meatier questions, I'd love to ask for each of you, what are the biggest changes that have transpired to your, talent acquisition and talent retention process since the pandemic? How have you adjusted your way of working? Laura, why don't you start us off?
I'll start off. So basically, a few months ago, Extrinsica Global, we very much used recruiters, and we had, quite a good pool of recruiters, external recruiters that we work with. And probably the last 3-4 months since me joining, basically, we've gone into very much sort of organic strategy. And obviously with remote working, you need to really attract talent more than ever before, because good talent, they've got pick of the bunch now. They can go wherever they want. So it's very much sort of, we've been getting culture videos together, sort of getting a spliced up video of why people enjoy working here. Been getting people onto Glassdoor. We've been, we're coming up with a content strategy, and we're trying to get everybody involved online as well. So sort of changing the culture a little bit, whereas before it was very much office-based, external recruiters. We had investment in September, which has enabled us now to very much grow as a company. So yeah, it's been all go basically. And the main change has been going to remote working, obviously making sure people are happy within the organization, and enabling that cross collaboration, especially for new starters, to meet everyone on the team. So yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, and I want to dive into one point there. So, without being able to allow people into the office where they can sort of feel the culture around them in a really visceral way, they can see, the wonderful perks and amenities that you offer in the office, that like no longer can be an attractive selling point. So how are you guys recalibrating to try and create an appealing employer brand without the ability to have people come into an office?
So I've been using Teams, Microsoft Teams a lot. Obviously, we're a Microsoft partner, so we're going to use Teams a lot. The first thing that we did was that we set up an Extrinsica virtual kitchen. So you can set up a group within Teams, set that up, and very much encourage people just to share pictures of their dogs, of their cats, what they've been up to on the weekends, like get people chatting and being less professional. And it's sort of it needs to be a safe place where people can completely be themselves. So we had that. Then we've done something more for well-being. So we've got a well-being group. People share meditations, yogas, and stuff like that. And then we have another group, which is virtual library, which is where we share sort of what books we recommend at the moment and share things between each other. So we did that, which when someone starts, we'll share like a write-up, of more of a personal write-up rather than a professional write-up, with a couple of, personal photos, maybe them with a family or them with a dog or them doing something they love doing, but we'll share that with the team in the kitchen. And then everyone will welcome them, and then we'll actually we'll encourage them to make a call, if they can, once a day with a different team member. so they can get to know all the different team members, and obviously don't feel so isolated that way as well. And then we'll do a welcome call. So we'll set up a whole company welcome call, and everyone has their favorite chocolate sent to their house. So basically, yeah, which I thought was awesome. Obviously, on my welcome call, I had, you know, coffee sent to me and chocolates and things, and anyone else who's joined, we did a bundle of them because we had a load all join at the same time, and we just got them all to introduce themselves. We all introduced ourselves, and yeah, we found out what everyone's favorite dietary needs were, not favorite dietary needs, but favorite chocolates and what they can eat, etc. So that's been working really nicely. And to be honest, you can get to know each other almost better over Teams than you can in person, because you can have more personal, private one-to-ones. So it's just been encouraging that, really, for people to take time out their day to do that. So
absolutely, yeah, and that's really lovely to incorporate like a little bit of that non-professional personal fun into the workplace. Like we also at Bob, we use Slack to do this as well. But the way that we do it is whenever a new joiner starts, the manager posts something in Bob with like a little bit of trivia about them, a photo, some of their interests, just to get the team engaged, and then that obviously integrates well into Slack and Teams and gets posted everywhere. So yeah, I think indoctrinating people digitally is huge. Pia, tell me a little bit about how your strategy has changed since this all started. As a people partner, I'm sure you're also responsible for HR business partnership and dealing a lot with like different people across the business. How has your strategy changed in the last 6 to 9 months?
Yeah, so in terms of the macro strategy, it hasn't changed that much, but more on the day-to-day details, let's say, because we've been always kind of like trying something new, then test how it goes, gather the feedback, and then continue or change it. So this methodology kind of kept on going with us. However, it is true that we had to adjust a lot since we became 100% remote, right? So I don't know, I guess I could talk about many examples, but for instance, one of the things that for us became very, very crucial is to have this, what you were saying, like checkup points with each of our employees. So the way our team is right now structured lets us afford the time to have one-to-ones with employees throughout the company. And we make sure that at least in a quarter, we have 30% of the company covered. And that way we can actually understand what's going on. And also we send the NPS constantly to understand the main pain points, perhaps. So yeah, we also have Slack. We also have different activities to bring us all together. But these kind of things also give us more information to understand what to focus on. And something that I actually like to talk about this because it's, I don't know, sometimes we all think that we are the only ones that are not doing it perfectly and other companies are doing it better than us. So for us, it's also a learning process. Since March until now, we have made so many mistakes or so many things that could have actually been better, but we are still learning. And even now we're launching initiatives that are not quite there, but we're still fixing them. So yeah, this has whole been a process, I guess, for you as well. But yeah, that's.
Yeah, fair. And I think there's so much to be learned on trial and error. Nobody has ever done this before, right? We're probably the first generation to be actively working through a pandemic like this, and so ultimately, like, there's a lot of optimization, trial and error, and experimentation that happens in this process. All right, Sarah, give us some insight into how your process has changed.
Yeah, so we, up until March, have been very locally based. Our office is in York, and most of our staff have been based from around that area, and so has our talent pool been. And so very quickly early on in the lockdown period, we were like, we can just access the whole country for our talent. And so being able to open up all of our vacancies to be remote, flexible working, we very quickly early on decided that we would become a work from anywhere business, and we aren't going to close our office, but we aren't ever going to get everybody back in there 9 to 5 Monday to Friday like we have done. And so that's just enabled us to really open up the talent that we're accessing, and that's just been so exciting for us. We now have somebody working for us up in Glasgow and somebody almost at the tip of Cornwall and everywhere in between, and that's just really, really exciting for us. We also brought on in May a talent partner to come and join my team, and she has an extensive background in recruitment, both internal and agency, and so we've been able to just drive a lot more of our own engagement with candidates, as opposed to like Laura's experience. We were very much channeling all of our recruitment through agencies, whereas now we're able to do it ourselves through LinkedIn, through other avenues, and we've just seen a massive engagement in our vacancies that are going out there. We're also, similar to Laura, putting a lot more out on social media, talking about our existing staff. We actually nicked an idea from Teamtailor that we loved. We noticed that Teamtailor were putting out little Meet the Team posts on a Friday, so we now do Meet the Team Mondays, and we've been doing that for a couple of weeks, and we love it. It's similar to what you guys have been doing and talking about. This is what they do in Boxxe, but this is who they are outside, and some pictures of them. You know, we've had pictures of people at mountains and doing their gaming and everything in between, and just getting to know our people on a personal level, doing similar things to what Laura was talking about as well, just getting people to really think about introducing themselves, where in the past they would have just wandered around the office and said hi to people while they were making a cup of tea and things. Actually really considering and putting in those touch points with people, whether they're in their team or not. So we found that to be really, really important. But like Pia says, we are not there yet. You know, we're not perfect. And even just from what both Laura and Pia have just said just now, I'm already thinking, oh well, we don't do that, but we could nick that idea. So yeah, really interested to hear more from both of them.
Yeah.
I think I mean, that's great that we're sharing ideas on this call, but I think more importantly, like there's no right or wrong way to do this. I think sharing personal information on your employees on social is great. It gives, like, it stretches your employer brand, and it's a free thing that you can do, right? It doesn't cost any money, but it shows that you're the type of company that cares about your people and who they are holistically, not just who they are within their role. So that's great. For those just joining us, I have 3 HR experts on the line, Laura, Pia, and Sarah, and we're talking all about attracting employees, attracting top talent, onboarding, pre-boarding, and retaining and engaging employees as well within the quote-unquote dreaded new normal that we talk about all the time. So please feel free to submit questions here in the question box, and I'm going to work through these throughout the course of today's session. So the first one here actually is for Laura. You touched base a little bit on Glassdoor earlier and getting employees to post there as part of your employer brand efforts. We have a question here from Sarah, who's asking how you incentivize employees to do this. And I'm guessing her question is around without it seeming oppressive or like you're forcing them.
Yeah, so with Glassdoor, obviously, as a startup, we're going through loads of changes at the moment. So we've got a mixture of people who are super happy with all the changes, and some people are like, oh, my role's just changed, you know, and obviously the infrastructure just gone from a small company, 35, just completely changed now, ready to scale. So, you know, lead positions, things have changed, people have been moved around. So, but we think what we did first of all, before asking people to do that on Glassdoor, we massively incentivized. So I did a lot of calls with everyone on the team just to check how they were, any problems they had, any concerns. And we had also a couple of other people who made sure to do that and make sure that everything was looked after and that they were really, you know, feeling cared for and heard. Because that's probably the most common thing you hear for remote workers, is that they don't feel that anyone's listening to them and they can feel quite isolated. So it's sort of making sure you're checking in, you know, encouraging that engagement. So so we did that first of all and sort of looked at any issues. And then we've started to slowly approach people, but I'm not pressurizing people to put a post. I'm sort of just saying, look, they're completely anonymous. I want them to be completely honest. A lot of people will say, what do you think I should write? I don't want them, you know, it's just sort of, you know, why did you join, or what do you like about working here? But really, it's their review to make. So if they put something that's, I mean, one of the rules on Glassdoor that is that even the bad comments are useful, because it shows you can see a company going through its growth. So sometimes you'll see a company with 3 stars or something, and they had like 1 star, 2 star, terrible reviews in the past, and then they've obviously sorted it out. So then you'll see their most recent reviews are 4 star, 5 star reviews. But yeah, I mean, it's useful to get that feedback as well. But it's something that we did just make sure everyone was okay, you know, sort of as we're starting to now become more, you know, putting our brand out there, I guess. So yeah, and with the, as everyone knows, with the startup environment, we've gone back into a startup environment now and scaling. there's going to be a lot of people who are feeling all sorts of different things right now. So yeah, we're just making sure they're looked after as best we can.
Yeah, and Glassdoor can be such a powerful tool for attracting talent and reflecting your employer brand. I don't know that there's anybody who interviews for a new job without at least checking Glassdoor once. I think most people can sort of read between the lines and, understand that there are always scaling challenges, especially for fast-growing businesses like yours. But yeah, it's cool that you guys have an emphasis on it, at least maintaining it. I have a question here from Sophie for Sarah. So, since your team has gone from regional to now global, and you have employees who are further away, what challenges did you face in adapting your onboarding process for new employees, that used to be local within an office, and now you have to deal with mail and, I don't know, shipping regulations and maybe all kinds of other logistical nightmares? I'd love to hear about it. And this question is from Sophie Hughes.
Great, thanks, Sophie. So we're not global yet. I'll put yet in there, but we're just UK at the moment. But yeah, so I suppose those logistical challenges around post and things, we do still have our office is open, and our great reception team work their magic in making sure things are sent out to us. And we actually, because of the nature of what we do, we have a warehouse, so logistically that's not a problem. We have that in-house to be able to do that. We also don't get a huge amount of staff post, so that's not a massive issue. I think in terms of managing the workforce remotely, the biggest challenge I think has been that we're split out, but ultimately, whether I'm in, there's quite a few colleagues who live within kind of a 10-minute walk of where I live, and I don't notice a difference between talking to them on Teams and talking to our lady in Glasgow or somebody over in Manchester. And actually we've worked quite hard to ensure that our teams stay connected wherever their people are, so we use Microsoft Teams as well. And so just an example within my team, the two ladies who work for me, they live about an hour away from me, and we just constantly have a team chat going all day between us that we can all see, and sometimes it's work related, sometimes it's about non-work things, and everything in between. And that just really helps us to feel connected as a team. And we're a team of 3, so we're quite small, and like I mentioned earlier, our talent partner only joined us in May, so fortunately I'd managed to meet her pre-lockdown, but she hadn't met our other colleague prior to lockdown, and up until they did meet, they just felt like they'd already met in person and already knew each other and had got to know each other, because we put these things in place where we have regular team calls across the business. Most teams have a call 3 to 5 times a week, just as like to touch base, and they don't have to be long things, but just to replicate that in the morning, I've walked in with my cup of coffee, what's going on, what are we on with today, just that to try and just replicate that office environment to a certain degree, but with us all being remote. And I think collaboration has been made, so we use Office 365, and being able to collaborate on documents in a live environment is great. I can have it open, my colleague can have it open, we can see where each other are, and it just makes it super easy to collaborate on things. Don't get me wrong, I do miss being in a room with my colleagues. I really do, and hopefully as we move forward into 2021, we'll be able to gather our workforce together for key moments, so whether that's key team meetings or company-wide events, but we've worked quite hard to ensure that the teams feel connected. And I think the main key to that is communication. Just if you're not sick of saying it, you probably haven't said it enough.
That's a great line there. I mean, you guys have touched on something so important, Sarah, with everything you just said, and Laura with the virtual kitchen idea. It's everything has to be a little manufactured until it starts to feel organic, right? And so it could be a little awkward at first, right, to try and recreate these interactions that you used to be very organically happening in the kitchen or at the printer, and recreate them digitally. But it's important to take that step, because ultimately it'll start to feel normal, just like everything else does. And so it seems like you guys all 3 of you are on your way to providing that type of experience for your teams, which is amazing. I have a question here from Mary for you, Pia. So how has your onboarding process changed within the new normal?
Okay. So part of the onboarding was, I mean, the main difference is, of course, we were before in the office. Right now we're fully remote. So that's the first big step and first big difference that we have noticed. However, getting more into detail it's about the little things, like I was saying, I think in the beginning. So basically, our full training was done before live. So basically, one person having a call with another person, or the meeting when we were in the office, we decided to migrate directly to Google Classroom, or well, training platform, let's say. So that the whole training on everything that has to do with the company, its policies, and its product, and its everything, we went directly online and directly through this platform, so nobody actually needed to be there. However, as I was saying before, our approach has been to be really close to whoever is to our employees. So whoever was experiencing the onboarding, basically we had somebody to follow up on them, the person that's in charge of onboarding. In addition to this, we make sure that their equipment is delivered to the house or the place where they decide to work. Also, we kept the ambassador program, or the buddy program, which is basically the day that you start, you meet with somebody who's going to show you the tricks of the office. This time is the tricks of being in Signaturit. So basically who to ask if you panic about something, or this kind of questions. All of the documentation was always signed through Signaturit for us, so that part didn't really change much. I mean, the contracts and all of this, we're very lucky about that. But yeah, I guess the biggest change has been what I was saying, the trainings and the onboarding chats and getting to know everybody, right? But for what I've gathered as from feedback is that the way that we're structuring it, I'm sorry if I'm getting too long, is basically we sat down and decided to implement the process step by step to make sure that not only we have clear what we're going to present to the people that are coming to the company, but also to give them in advance what is going to be expected of them. So the 90 days plan was not only implemented and planned, but also shared with them in advance. So even before they come to the company, they already know what is going to be expected, at least the first week. Sometimes it's confidential, so you just wait for the first day to share with them the plan for the 90 days plan. And yeah, that's basically what I've gathered so far when I've been asking how is the onboarding process. And of course, that's very important. By the end of the week, they always have a meeting with us from HR where we ask, okay, so how was it? How are you doing? Blah, blah, and what would you recommend for us to improve next time? And yeah, that has been the whole package, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the most important phrase you used that I think will resonate with everybody is structured onboarding, right? It's a huge part of the Bob platform for this reason, and ultimately, I think being a new employee is like being a newborn baby, right? Lots of new sounds, lots of new visual images. It's overwhelming, and so ultimately, like the more guidance you can give people on what success looks like, what was expected of them in their early days, it sets them up for a great long-term relationship with the company. And so, yeah, we're all figuring out how to do that in a remote world, but it seems like you guys at Signaturit are on your way, so that's amazing. Okay, question here from Samantha for anybody on the panel. So you hire a great employee, you onboard them, and then over time you start to see that they just aren't really bothering with engagement. Like maybe they're not the type of person who knows how to engage digitally. Maybe it's not something that's familiar with them, or maybe they're just someone who, even in the office, might be a little bit more of an introvert or a loner. Anybody have any tips for how to engage an employee like that?
For me, I'm super passionate about finding out what people's interests are. So, and sometimes you'll have people where they say they have no interest, but there's always something. So I suppose I would, have a chat with them, find out what their interest is. That's usually going to be something that they're a little bit naturally good at, whatever their interest is, whether it's gaming, whether it's, I did have one member of staff actually who was really interested in gaming, and was quite, would play for hours and hours, but was more of an introvert, so not really taking part in the kitchen and stuff like that. But once I started speaking about gaming, he really lit up and didn't stop talking. So I sort of thought, okay, well, how can I get him engaged with the team about gaming? Because obviously we're a technology company, there's going to be other people who love gaming. So coming up with an idea now where he's going to run, on Fridays, maybe use Mario Kart, or we're looking at what platform, but we're going to do it so that people can, you know, on a Friday have an hour where they just game together, but that's going to be like his project that he runs. There is another one actually who's really passionate runner, and I gave him a project. So it's like empowering people at the same time. But I gave him a project to set up an Extrinsica Global Strava group and encourage people to get out running. And he loves that because he's gone from, you know, someone who didn't run to running his first marathon, super passionate about it. So it's sort of finding out what his passion is. So I guess, yeah, for me, I personally will find out what their hobbies are. You know, you can find out what drives them, what motivates them, what they do in their spare time, you know, different questions to find out what they are, but then try and see if I can implement that into the workplace in some way.
Yeah. That's a great tip. I mean, we have a hobby section within Bob and an activity section, so you can like organize people in club view by, okay, here are the 40 people in the London office who love reading books. Here are the 20 people in the New York office who love running. And it makes it really easy for HR to plan initiatives like this. So I love that. It really is all about like finding your employees' interests. Mark from Infinity has a question on making remote onboarding training engaging instead of what he calls death by PowerPoint, which I'm sure we've all experienced. If anybody has any tips on how to avoid death by PowerPoint, I'd love to hear them.
Most of our onboarding training is actually like one-to-one with a member of our team, and there might be PowerPoint as part of that, but it'll be one-to-one or in small groups of new starters. We onboard every fortnight, so we kind of start that program every fortnight, and we have a program of kind of how people move through the business dependent on their teams. So it's very new, so it's not actually set up in all of our teams yet, but within the sales team, for example, that's very set up. They have a 4-week plan that they go through, and that involves sales specific things, but then also company wide bits and pieces, and it's all very different. So we have one online training for health and safety, for example. The nature of what we do, we have to give our staff a security induction, and so they have a security induction with our CISO, and that is a PowerPoint, but it's interactive with him. And our first initial induction with our people partner, that is on Teams, one-on-one or a small group, looking at how we use Bob and how they go navigate that system, and all the other bits that interconnect in. And then as they go through those first few weeks, they meet other key people. So I always have a chat with our new starters the following week, once they've been with us a week, and kind of pick up on the things that Pia mentioned there. So we're trying to make it as interactive and as many different things as possible. We also encourage our existing staff to call new starters. So whenever we put a post out, so we use the shout outs on Bob to announce new starters, and so we always say on there, you know, do make sure, we just remind our current staff, you know, do pick up the phone, do book in a Teams call, introduce yourself. It doesn't just have to be about work, and we just kind of instilling that into them, that it's okay to pick up the phone and just have a coffee and a chat with someone for 10 minutes and find out who they are. You do that in the office. So trying to move away from it just being, here's a list of rules and regulations and policies. Actually, we're real people and you're a real person. We want to get to know you.
So I think all of that is great advice. One of our customers based in New York, I had a chat with them a couple of weeks ago about this same issue of keeping training engaging, and a few things that they recommended really stood out to me. So one of them was make sure that someone from your HR team, someone who's specialized in engagement, goes through the training schedule, because ultimately, usually when you leave it up to hiring managers, their goal is to get the employee producing and productive and doing work as quickly as possible. They're not thinking about making the experience engaging. So this head of HR told me, like, I have someone from my team go through each training schedule with a fine-tooth comb to sit down and think about, like, will this be enjoyable? Will this be engaging? Will this be like culturally positive for the employee? And then the other thing that they recommended was that every employee who does a training, who conducts a training, has to go through some sort of certification, so that like someone has observed how they deliver these trainings. So because sometimes being a subject matter expert isn't quite enough to keep an audience engaged for an hour. So but I think both of those could help as well, Mark. But thank you so much for the intel, Sarah. I have another question here. We just have them flowing in, but keep them coming, guys. I have a question from Sophia on digital activities for people who are new to the organization. So She expresses that sometimes it gets very formal because it's all digital, and because when you have a large group of people on a Zoom call, you can't all talk at once. The way that if you're at a real party, you can split into little groups, right? So, any tips on how to prevent that kind of awkward, formal feeling in a wide Zoom or Teams call?
So at my end, we're currently doing a load of Christmas party things, and I can't share what they all are because they're surprises. I don't want anyone to see it. But we're doing different games, and some of those games are quite challenging to do with 35 people on a call. So so we're working out different ways that, for example, we're looking at either using Teams, which we should use Teams because we're a Microsoft partner, or using Zoom, because Zoom you've got breakouts, so you can actually preset breakout rooms in Zoom. You can put a timer on them, and it will auto move people into these breakout rooms for 5 minutes, 10 minutes to talk about a certain subject, and you can do it in groups of 2 up to whatever number you want. And that's a really useful feature. And then you all come back into one room and say, choose someone to say what you had decided, or what you had discussed. But Microsoft Teams, there's actually loads of third-party applications that you can add. So there's like 3 little dots, and I saw there's loads of third-party apps that also work in similar ways, and they are bringing out breakouts. But yeah, for me, it's very much using that breakouts function. And yeah, it is tricky though to not be formal when there's quite a lot of you and people are nervous talking in front of so many. So yeah, but breakout rooms is probably my go-to.
Yeah, great tip, breakout rooms.
It also depends on kind of the culture of your company as well. And of course, there are going to be some meetings that are formal and there's nothing you can do about it. But it is true that for us, it was about gathering small groups we start with a big group, the whole, perhaps the chat from the CEO, but then break into small groups. And sometimes we just had a conversation, even in the same platform, in the chat of for instance, here in the chat, all of us chatting about the main topic that everybody's talking about, or just via Slack, that it's something that we also used on day-to-day basis. So yeah, I guess it's just to see the possibilities of your tools and what the topic's about and how would it adapt to your team, and try to figure it out from there.
Great. I have another question that I want to direct to all 3 of you, because I think each of you probably has a very different strategy for this, or at least has experienced things differently. And we'll start with you, Sarah. So the question is from Verity. Her question is centered around how, when new employees start, they're full of energy and vigor, and it's day 1. But then especially for employees who, I'm sure many of you have people on staff who've never even been to the office. They've never experienced culture physically. And the question is around these employees experiencing burnout or anxiety during this work from home period. And so she wants to know, A, how you've combated that sort of burnout and anxiety, but also how you toe the line between, being supportive of well-being versus, keeping people productive and efficient and stuff as well.
Yeah, and I think if you've got the answer to that one.
He has the answer.
Yeah. I think it's just a real mixture of, I think it goes back to something I've already said around communication. It's down to the line managers really understanding their people and really getting that relationship there. As for all the will in the world, I'd love to spend time on calls with each and every member of our team, but we have over 170 members of staff now, and it would be all that I would do. So I really rely heavily on our line managers to be picking up on this stuff and be having those good one-to-ones. We try and encourage people, where people can get outside and go for walks and take breaks. We don't expect everybody to work solidly all the hours under the sun. We expect people to enjoy a good balance between their home life and their work life, and we try and talk about that a fair bit so that people know that that's okay. As well, it's putting in place formal things. So we have a formal the name's gone from my head, employee assistance program for staff, and we have proactively, so we've had that in place just over a year now, but at different points during the last couple of months we've re-promoted it amongst line managers, so that it's it's at the forefront of people's mind. And actually, even just this week, a line manager asked me for the information again so she could talk about it again with her staff, and just kind of pushing things out there. We do also have mental health first aiders within our business, and we just every night periodically just drop those names out there for people. But yeah, I think the main thing, the main key is relationships with line managers and team members. I think that's nothing really can substitute. We can do all the other stuff and all the great stuff, and you know, we've, similar to Laura, we've got a social calendar between now and the end of the year with different events and different challenges, but really it's that communication again, and knowing your people.
Yeah, I think the unfortunate truth is that there's no good replacement for old-fashioned communication, and so whether remotely or in person, we all have to master it somehow. I wanted to ask a follow-up question on one of the things you said. So, you know, I know a lot of people on this particular webinar, a lot of our attendees are in the Nordics region, because this webinar is co-sponsored by Teamtailor, which is a Swedish startup that does recruitment and is an applicant tracking system and great for talent acquisition. And a lot of our customers with Bob are also based in the Nordics or in geographies where, you know, at this point in the calendar year, there's less daylight. And if you're used to working a strict 9 to 5, you may just miss it altogether. And so has anybody on the call given guidance on how people can maybe work outside of traditional hours or traditional scheduling to kind of make their day their own?
So in regards to, you know, well-being and obviously getting outside and having more flexibility around the day, it's quite ironic actually, because my wife's there's loads of training for MHFA, Sarah, and you're saying about having MHFA train people, which I don't know if they have that in the Nordics, but it's basically mental health, someone who looks after people's mental health and well-being. But she's always telling me, you know, switch off your laptop at this time, blah blah blah, and it's really important for the line managers. It's up to the line managers to set an example as to how to work and to not be burnt out themselves, because usually if they'll be working till 8 p.m, everyone else will want to work till 8 p.m. as well. But something that we've been encouraging to get people outside, you know, and enjoying the little bits of daylight, are to have more walk and talks. So on Zoom, you can get completely zoomed out. I've been a remote worker for 7 years because I was part of Curo, which was a remote company before. And since COVID, everyone suddenly was like, we need to have video calls all the time, which obviously we're not built to stare at a screen for like hours and hours through the day and just stare. You don't move, you don't, you know, when you're on the phone, you walk around. So I've been massively encouraging people to get out there, go for walk and talk. You know, line managers to finish on time, but if you've got a member of staff, you know, is going on past 6 or whatever, to sort of say like, oh, why are you working right now? Which is something I did the other day, and actually it was a load of staff meeting up for wine online, so they weren't working. But I was checking in like, why are you all online? Why are you working? That's really good to have that culture where you're almost telling each other off or snitching on each other. So I have someone who has a go at me if ever I log in on a Friday, because that's my day off. She's like, you're off, set an example. So it's like, okay, I'm off. I can't go on Teams. You know, don't go on my laptop. But yeah, and then the other thing is having incentives. So for example, a lot of us at Extrinsica and a previous company I worked for before, we use smartwatches, and we'll have either Fitbit or Strava or something, but we'll have little awards for, or little, you know, well dones or something, but for the people who've done the most steps, which encourages you to do more of those walk and talks, get out for a walk on your lunch break. You know, we have extended lunch breaks if someone's going for a run. So we'll see it on Strava, on the Extrinsica Strava, they've been out for a run or for a walk, and yeah, like they get an hour and a half rather than an hour. But yeah, lots of incentives just to get people, you know, moving a bit more, because I think we're moving less than we ever have, especially if you don't have a dog or something. So yeah,
I love that. I don't know why. You're right. We have all become accustomed to just being on video all the time.
Yeah, like with eye drops.
Yeah, our you know, like our lumbars are paying the price for it. All right, perfect. So I, you know, like the earlier question to Sarah was sort of how you're helping avoid burnout, anxiety, how you're helping maintain positive morale during this period when people are working from home and maybe have never even been into an office. Pia, do you have any tips for handling like an employee experience like this?
Well, what we've been promoting since the beginning is, on one hand, communication and flexibility. On the other hand, flexibility. So basically, flexibility as in what we were mentioning before. Maybe you need to make a break because you have kids or because anything that might be happening in your life and you need to have a different schedule during the day to work. Then we're being very flexible, and we have been coaching managers on how to deal with these situations. Because the idea is always to get the job done. If you do it in a different schedule, it's okay, as long as you respect the dynamics of your team, right? And on the other hand, communication, because another reason that we've identified that also can lead to demotivation is not knowing what you're doing your work for, right? So it's like, okay, I know I'm working every day, but I don't really see people, how it impacts the company, people actually valuing what I'm doing and so on. So we work really hard to make sure that everybody knows why the work is important, how we measure them, and the impact that it has in our company. Besides that, of course, we go into the details of each team. As I was saying, we follow up on people to make sure that whenever there's a red flag or something that we need to tackle, then we do it on time. We still haven't found the perfect formula, as I was saying before. But yeah, I think between those two things, communication and flexibility, that's kind of like the way that we're going.
Yeah, I think we forget all the time how much nonverbal communication pays and drives into an employee's self-esteem and self-worth within work. Like, you're in a room, you're giving a presentation, and you see, people nodding, or, you hear people clapping, or even someone, pats you on the shoulder, or someone tells you good job in the hallway. Those things are so hard to do remotely. But, if you're using Bob, I can't recommend the kudos and shout out features enough. We use them all the time. They're our most widely used feature. And it can, that type of digital appreciation, though not quite the same as being able to tell someone face to face, goes a long way towards making employees feel like they know what they're doing, they're recognized, and they know that they've been successful, which can go a long way towards avoiding that burnout and anxiety. I'm going to try and get through as many questions as I have here, as we're reaching the end of our time. So this is to anyone on the panel who's had an experience with this. Has anybody noticed that current candidates are maybe giving more value or better eyes to companies that are continuing to offer remote work after COVID?
I can say, sorry, Laura, you wanted to?
No, it's right. I was gonna ask to reframe the question because I didn't quite understand it, but I'll let you answer, Pia.
Okay, so yeah, I've seen that, especially when it comes to tech profiles, to IT profiles, sorry. They are really inquisitive about that. They are really interested in keeping the remote conditions 100% afterwards. But for instance, in revenue teams, I haven't seen that much in candidates. At least I can speak of us from Spain, because I'm right now in Barcelona. In any case, it is true that people are asking more and more. So, are you going to make? Once everything's gone or the virus passes, are we going to have to go to the office 100% of the time? That kind of questions I have received a lot. Not are you going to be 100% remote, but do I have to go every day to the office afterwards? So yeah, based on that, we are actually planning to become a hybrid, to adopt a hybrid model to our day-to-day work. And yeah.
Yeah, I think remote work has gone from being a perk to being sort of a mandate in a way. So many people's, we hear this all the time from our Bob community. So many people's life circumstances have changed, right? The way that they take care of childcare, the way that they commute, the places they've chosen to live and sign leases or mortgages have all changed throughout this year. And so it's impossible to expect everybody to spring back, to normal completely as it was. And yeah, I think remote work as a part of your package makes a lot of sense. I have a question here from Camila, and this is one that's near and dear to my heart. How do you guys work with your line managers and the people in your company to help avoid, or leaders in particular, to help avoid meeting saturation? She at her company did a survey, and their employees feel like they have too many meetings all the time. This goes back to Laura's point a little bit from earlier. But any tips on avoiding meeting saturation, particularly during an employee's first couple of weeks or months on the job?
It's a really hard one, isn't it? So, I mean, with our line managers, they are the worst for having those so many meetings, and everyone right now is so very busy all the time. And you know, meetings. I mean, something that is massively recommended is to have those breaks between the meetings. A lot of the time, people will book an 11, a 12, a 1, a 2, etc. And I think sometimes it's almost maybe running a session would be good. So something we're starting to do is running more internal sessions, but you know, I'm tempted to run a bit of a session with our line managers at the moment because everyone's so busy whilst they're going through restructuring growth. They've all got new staff to train up, so they're obviously having to chat to them a lot and things. But there's so much that can be done just over an email or, you know, over a WhatsApp message or sending a quick, you know, video message if you want, or you know, it doesn't have to always be a call. So and then something else with line managers is we're trying to get everyone to adopt a 5 outcomes a day system. So rather than having this massive to-do list of 20 things or something, it's like, well, what are your main outcomes, and keeping that to 5, and then getting them to implement that across their teams. But they need to, on calendars at the moment, we're getting people to block off time so that in the afternoon, if you need to catch up on your admin, rather than doing it at 6 p.m. after you've had all your video calls, it's trying to, you know, I personally have my time blocked off from 10 a.m. to about 12:30, and that's when I catch up on stuff. No one's allowed to phone me, and yeah, if I randomly end up falling into lots of meetings through the rest of the day, then that's fine because I've had at least that time. But it's trying to implement that with others in the team, get them to block off time on their calendars. But yeah, it's a really challenging thing now with, you know, especially when you're onboarding and they've got new starters and they're managing performance and trying to stop them from feeling isolated, and a one-to-one call is better than a group call. So yeah, it is a constant challenge.
Yeah, I think there's no perfect answer, which is why all of us sort of parsed in the beginning of the question. But you know, I guess anything you can do. Like I remember seeing a mug at a market recently that said, yet another meeting that should have been an email. And so sort of keep that top of mind for yourself as you're scheduling meetings. The last question I have for each of you. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, the other day I was actually reading an article that was saying that some companies are implementing free meeting days. Is that phrased correctly? Could you correct me if not? So
Sounds
days
good.
without any meetings, so that nobody can actually schedule company-wide any meetings, so that people can take days off if needed, or just meeting-free days and get some rest from that. And I thought that's actually quite a good idea. Like if we can actually afford to implement that at least once a month, or maybe 1 week by the end of December or something like that, I think that could actually be a good idea to see how our people react and maybe find a way to not do so many meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Lovely idea.
Block days. Yeah, I think that's actually a great idea. For us, because we're global, it happens naturally, because I know like our Israel team doesn't work on Fridays, so I know that I'll have less meetings on Fridays. But if you can manufacture that within your business, I think that would be ideal. All right, as we get ready for our last question here for our panelists, right before we ask, I'm going to launch a poll really quick. You know, for those who are new on the line who haven't heard of the Hibob people management platform, you know, we help specialize in helping onboard, engage, and retain your employees in all the ways that matter. And so I'm launching a poll here for, or hopefully I am. You know, so for those of you who are not Hibob customers on the line, if you'd like to see a personalized overview of the Hibob platform, have an understanding of how it might help you at your business, how it might, you know, give you some insight into do better onboarding, structured onboarding, how it may help you create a hybrid workforce, how it can help you with performance evaluations and performance reviews heading into the new year, how it can help you with compensation management as you're reviewing salaries and bonuses heading into the new year, and how it can help keep your HR team efficient and on task. You know, we contribute in all those different areas, and if you would love to see a little bit more, feel free to click yes here in the poll, and we will have someone from the Hibob team reach out to give you a little bit more information. So I'm going to keep the poll running here for just 30 more seconds or so. But in the meantime, I'll share our final question with our panelists. You know, so it's less of a question and more of a call to action. So I'd love to hear from each of you as we have, you know, a couple minutes left. one or two, really big tips that you would give to anybody, in your role navigating the challenges that you're facing as we head into 2021. What are the biggest things you're keeping top of mind, and what would you recommend that other practitioners or leaders in the space like you keep top of mind as well? So let's start off with you, Laura. What are your big tip, big wisdom headed into 2021?
So going into 2021, I would say it's really important to keep the right culture and the right sort of energy going forward. So encouraging that, different types of engagement, but it doesn't have to always be professional. So things like gaming on a Friday, or, the Strava running group, or, different types of groups like that. It's really good sort of getting people doing things almost like outside of work, but in work time. So that, and then the other thing is having a content strategy. I know everyone has, well, not everyone, we don't have a marketing team yet, but other organizations, they might have marketing teams, people who do all the social media and all that stuff, but a lot of the time it's all about their product, and it's all about what they can offer and their service and all that stuff. Whereas I think it's really important to find different quirky ways that you can show your team, because with Extrinsica, I found so many people want to join because they want to be a part of that team. They've seen different members, they've seen the different hobbies that we like doing, and it's sort of trying to show show the blooper videos, show behind the scenes what the company's doing, and obviously offering value as well through videos. But I think video and sort of putting valuable content is almost as it's like we have to sell ourselves to attract the best talent. And I found that it's a bonus having so much content out there, because when people start to find out about Extrinsica, they'll just go on my profile and they know everything. I'm just like, what? And they're like, oh, I watched this video from then, and I've been on this video, and I went on YouTube, and it's and they all know me, and they know what I like doing, and they know where I live. It's a bit scary actually, but it's quite cool because it means they're completely bought in, and a lot of that time they're very, very passive. So it's passive talent who are willing to wait until the right role comes up and things, and that's really been a game changer and something we're going to be focusing on a lot in 2021.
Amazing. Pia, give us your top tip or top piece of insight headed into 2021.
Honestly, it would be just to don't be afraid to try new things, and at the same time, don't be afraid to learn from your mistakes, because we have a whole year where we can actually gather the data of everything that has been going on, everything that we have implemented, and everything that we have not. And I believe that based on all of this data that we can gather, and our own creativity and what we believe can be best for our teams, we're going to keep implementing things that are going to make them feel better. And that would come as one advice. And another advice would be, whenever you don't know what to do, just ask your people. Even if it comes to hiring things, like, I don't know how to post this. Do you think this job description actually says what you're doing on your day-to-day job? All of this is the best thing you can do. I mean, ask your people, what would you like to see published on social media? What would you like me to do to focus on this problem or solve this? And I believe that can be actually a really solid strategy to in the end take care of your own people.
Amazing. And last but not least, again, Sarah, the final tip or word of wisdom from you headed into next year.
Great. So I think there's so much, and I want to, but I think if I have to pick one thing, it's going to be pay attention to culture. I think this year has been, well, I don't even know what word we use for this year, but I think we've all done our best this year, and I think as we move into next year, our businesses will look different. Even if everybody does return back to offices in some places, if some workforces are split up and remote, some workforces have made the decision to go completely remote, I think paying a deliberate attention to culture is going to be really key. And some of it will happen organically, but I think there is definitely place for some deliberate shaping of that, of what do we want. For us, it's what do we want our business to be like, what do we want the experience of working for Boxxe to be, and being deliberate in that.
Amazing. Well, I can't think of a better note to end on. I'd love to thank Laura, Pia, and Sarah so much for your time, your wisdom, your expertise, and your good humor today. I think we all learned a lot. I know I'm walking away with so many ideas for my team and that I can provide to our HR team. So I thank you so much for the time today. And thank you so much to our audience for sticking with us during this crazy year. We have another webinar next week on December 9th that is going to be focused on talking to the C-suite and people analytics. I hope to see you there. But for today, this has been Ali with Hibob. Thank you all so much for joining us, and have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.